Okay, I'm just going to give an update on what we've done since the last time we all reconvened in this room about a year and a half ago. Right after our last meeting, we did some work locally in relation to this building just north at Blue Heron Bridge. We have a snorkel trail there. We get a bit of accretion. Let me see if I can get this pointer to work. Oh, there we go. In this area. So the channel comes up here in Doglegs to the left and then goes under the bridge. So this area was getting some accretion. We had a DEP grant to do some work at Peanut Island. Those plans kind of fell through, so we had a reuse of that grant, and we went in and supplemented the snorkel trail to add one layer, or one rock really, per of these circular pods. And that was to help battle against the sand accretion at the dog lake and the channel. And then as well, we added some what we call breadcrumbs, or essentially one rock leading people out from the beach so that they can easily find the snorkel trail. We were having people come from out of state, out of country, and had heard about the snorkel trail, but were getting completely lost, not really understanding how far they needed to swim, and people were swimming into the channel. And so the lifeguards were getting annoyed, and the sheriff's office was also asking us to do something. So now you can just easily go from this lifeguard stand out. It takes you right to the beloved shark statues that we have there. And then you can hook right around and follow it all the way back on this side of the beach. We also used the grant to deploy 15 artificial reef modules that were donated by the Andrew Red Harris Foundation, and install 5 pilings. And the pilings were really just to keep boaters out. As you know, in Florida, anybody can come down and rent a boat and you don't need a license. So we had a lot of people not from the area coming out from under the bridge and then hooking a quick left and coming right into our snorkel area. There's absolutely no injuries or anything. The lifeguards were always on top of it, but this was just another way to let boaters know you gotta stay outside of these pilings, and they have some signs on them. These are the little breadcrumbs I was talking about, so it's easy for people of all ages, like this little kid in the picture, to find their way out to the reef. And then after the breadcrumbs, here are some pictures of the modules that we put out. They're really easy to see underwater, and so people can stay on the snorkel trail. And this picture of our pilings for the boaters. We, just to the north of here, as part of this grant as well, we had some leftover rock, so we added a few pods of rocks to our site called Sugar Sands. And while that site is even further in our lagoon, it's one of the locations where we get the greatest diversity of fish species. We have the Palm Beach County Reef Research Team that monitors our reefs, and usually they hit this site every 2 years and find over 35 species of fish. As Keith mentioned, we did a lot of reused concrete material offshore of, just offshore of the inlet here, and it came from Flagler Bridge. So we have a local agreement with DOT that anytime a bridge is replaced within the county, the contractor has to donate the material to us. And their contract includes a barge and a tug and the proper people to take it offshore to where we'd like it placed and put in the water. So what was exciting about this is we had what was, I think almost every county has a rec truck, or a lot of places have a rec truck, but our rec truck is right out of our, the inlet, which is right over here out the window, to the north. And a few years ago, we did the Anna Cecilia, and so that's the southernmost end of our rec truck. And we had this big gap here. So it ended up being 2 dives. You either did the Anna Cecilia and the Amaryllis and some concrete and some limestone here, or the dive boats would take you up to the Daniel McCulley Memorial Reef, which was a tugboat, and the Royal Park Bridge material. But we really wanted to fill in this area, so we took this material, most of it, and filled in the area. So now we have one of the longest drift dives on an artificial reef that you can do in South Florida. It's a mile long. So if you have, the conditions are right and the current's ripping, you can drop in at the Anna Cecilia and see 4 ships, 3 tugboats, 2 barges, 20,000, no, probably close to 50,000 tons of reused concrete with the Royal Park Bridge and now the Flagler Bridge stuff, and 3,000 tons of limestone boulders all in one dive. And it's really interesting to see the species that like the different types of material. And especially since the Anna Cecilia is our newest wreck and the Mizpah to the north is our oldest wreck. It's cool to see the difference, how they change over time. The reef darts that Keith mentioned. Thank you so much to Jim Oppenborn, who allowed this project to happen, and our lighthouse project, because the sentiments he was talking about on working waterfront not existing, I think Palm Beach County has that first and foremost as our #1 problem. We literally have no working waterfront. So if Jim hadn't allowed the Fishing Foundation to come in and create these reef darts at his location, the project probably wouldn't have happened, because we really either have the port, but we can't build stuff at the port. You can only come in, load a barge, and then leave the next day, or to look outside of our county. But the Fishing Foundation did 12 reef darts, and this was a test this year. So we put them in 110 feet of water offshore of the inlet, and we did them in 110 feet so that we could go down and see how they fell, because this is really kind of a new idea on creating something that just basically sticks up out of the water and high profile. And the Fishing Foundation, they want to put something offshore in deep habitat for snapper grouper complex specifically. That's what the members were requesting. So that's where their foundation went with this project. So everything went off without a hitch. They put them over the side, everything landed upright. They just need to go back and do some structural tweaks on what they learned this year. And then, or last year. This year we'll be doing 24 in 550 feet of water. And then the year after that, they're gonna do between 25 and 40, depending on how this year goes. But yeah, this picture of them underwater. And it was funny because we put them in the water and we went down within 15 minutes and there's already like 2 barracuda and a lionfish on them. So you put them in, the fish will come. The Andrew Harris Foundation donated 130 modules and 3,000 tons of limestone rock. And we put the limestone in 6 different piles offshore of Jupiter. It's extending a reef that he's been working on the past 3 years. And then the modules, he did 3 different kinds, if you can see in this picture. The front ones are what he calls coral heads. The back ones are the pyramids from Macaulay Marine. And then we additionally had 4 that were donated from an Eagle Scout in Boca. He made 4 out of cinder blocks. And these are we got some nice stacking on our rock piles. These were deployed right before the hurricane. So we went out afterwards, and while the visibility was really bad for several months afterwards, it was interesting to see how different modules perform in different hurricane situations. So it's definitely going to tailor what we put out next year, because some like to move in the hurricane events, and some just don't hold up well with the wave action. This is in 55 feet of water. So we didn't have anything, it wasn't mass catastrophe or anything underwater, but some of the modules moved 250 feet away from where we placed them. So it's a learning lesson on the buffers that we have in our permits are super duper important if we have natural reef. This site, we don't have any natural reef near it, so it's not an issue, but it's just looking into the future, and it's a learning lesson. So it's nice to have all 3 different types in the same area, in the same depth of water, deployed right before a Cat 5 hurricane. And then the lighthouse. So the Andrew Harris Foundation approached the town of Jupiter and said, what if we partnered with you and made a lighthouse replica and put it on our reef as a diving attraction and as kind of a cool centerpiece for our reef. Scott Harris, who is the president of the Andrew Harris Foundation, went to one of their public meetings and just kind of pitched the idea. And he was not expecting them to say, yeah, build it. So they funded it. And we were also able to use Jim Oppenborn's site. You can see he was talking about Taylor Creek in the background. We literally built it right there and then put it on the barge. It was so nice. And again, it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't had that partnership with him. We also deployed this right after the hurricane. So we went and took pictures, but it was just a green sea. So this picture was actually just taken last month, and you can see the growth that's already on the lighthouse. The hope was someone was gonna go scrub it and keep the lighthouse red for a long period of time, but I don't think that's gonna happen. What was interesting, how they got it to be red was a zinc-based dye, so that it was environmentally safe and friendly, and there was no paint involved or anti-fouling paint or anything like that. And last but not least, Sailfish Marina, which is also just out the window to the north. They redid their concrete docks and wanted to donate some of that material for artificial reef use. So we went back to our sugar sand site just north of Blue Heron Bridge and did some pretty much, it's not hand placement, but there's a guy in the water with hookah, and they are lowering these pieces underwater and basically stacking back and forth the zigzag so that you get nice layering and great spots for fish to hide, and all sorts of invertebrates. We went back, there was tons of sea cucumbers on them, and it's a really interesting site because it is just north of the inlet. Upcoming projects, Keith mentioned the Clam Agora. It is still in its fundraising phase. Our contractor, Artificial Reefs International, just went to the Patriots Point board meeting in January, and Patriots Point was expressing that they definitely want this project to happen. They want it to happen soon, and they want it to get started before the next hurricane season. So they're offering up some additional funding to help the fundraising process. The museum initially put forth just over $500,000, and they're now offering to put in a little bit more, a little more than $500,000 on top of that. So then their contribution will be up to around $1 million to get the project going. There is some other large investors like Salt Life have put out a t-shirt for fundraising efforts. The county has a contract with them for $1 million. The overall budget is between 4 and 5. As we all know, with big projects like this, you hope it's a $4 million project, but it's probably going to be a $5 million project. So we'll see really how this proceeds in the next 6 months.